Good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Deeper than music radio, behind every great song, there's an even greater story. I'd like to say what's up to everybody listening to us on iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and all the great platforms that are streaming Deeper Than Music Radio. And then also I would like to say to all the people out there in YouTube land, hey, we're now on YouTube. So we have two amazing guests. We have Howard Bloom and Irene Michaels here to share their story and just, share what the inspiration behind what you guys do to keep people inspired. So how are you doing, both Howard and Irene?
Good.
We're fine.
Yeah. So Irene.
Yes.
Actress, model, dancer, philanthropist. First question, time management. How is it that you do everything that you do?
I get that question a lot. I'm very organized. It's all in different compartments in my mind, and I just keep focusing. And I stay in the moment, so I know what I'm doing.
Okay. And Howard, how do you manage your time, and where do you get all this talent from?
I have a very regular schedule. It includes a total of about 8.5 hours of sleep a night. I get up at 8 o'clock in the morning, take my bath, and take a whole load of pills. Because, I was in bed for 15 years with chronic fatigue syndrome. And then have a meeting with my assistant and brief her for the day. Then I drink breakfast and I go back to sleep. I get up at 3 o'clock. Today, I took an old friend who's a nephrologist on a walk because I need to walk 8 miles a day. And then came home and started work time, which generally begins at 6 o'clock. And goes until 1:30 in the morning. So everything is very organized.
Yeah.
So I see very organized. And so you guys are both in the entertainment field. Irene, you've been in iconic movies, Home Alone 2, General Hospital. You've worked with icons like Dolly Parton. And Howard, music publicist, author. You've worked with, I just saw his documentary, Billy Joel. My question, did you both know at a young age that you wanted to be in the entertainment field?
Well,
I did.
You go first, Irene.
Okay. I did since I was a little girl. I used to dress up all the time, pretend I was a princess, put a veil over my head, and take a broom and make it my horse. So the broom was my horse, and the costume I was a star. And this was from a very early age. I would say 11. I was taking dancing lessons, and then I started taking singing lessons, and out of that became modeling, and out of modeling became photography. Out of that became a book, and out of that, well, not the book, but out of all the things that I've learned, I got back into singing. And the reason why I got back into singing too is that when COVID hit, there was nothing really to do. People had to stay in the house, stay away from people. And that lasted, as you know, a long time. So I went to my piano and I started playing around with it. I played the guitar. I'm not too good on the piano, but I played the guitar. And I just said, I would like to sing again. So I started writing a little bit. And I played and I wrote and I played. And I thought, this will work. So I actually started singing at cabaret places here in Chicago. And I got a lot of notice. People knew I was out there. And from that, a girl had seen me and she wanted me to cut a record about house music. And I told her she is absolutely crazy. I'm too old to do house music. That's for 20-year-olds. But I did it. And I did a remix of Devil in Disguise. And it was pretty damn good. So I got all excited. And then I was invited to do a diva show, which is all house music. And I was on a big stage with about 4 or 5 people, and 4 or 5,000 in the audience. I don't know. I was bit by the bug. So I just continued and I loved it. Always have.
And what about yourself, Howard?
Well, I founded the biggest PR firm in the music industry and worked with Michael Jackson, Prince, Bob Marley, Bette Midler, AC/DC, Aerosmith, Kiss, Queen, Run DMC, Billy Joel, Billy Idol, Paul Simon, Peter Gabriel, and people like that. Run DMC and Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. And what when I was a kid, I was a totally lost kid in Buffalo, New York, which is basically a lost town. And I picked up a book one day, and it said the first two laws of science are these: the truth at any price, including the price of your life. And it told the story of Galileo, who, according to the book, had been willing to go to the stake in order to defend his truth. That's not true. But I needed the mythic version. And look at things right under your nose as if you've never seen them before. That's law number 2. And it gave the example of Anton von Leeuwenhoek, the guy who invented the microscope. So these two guys reached out across a distance of 350 years and saved me. And they gave me a place to live, a place where I could count for something. And that was science. So I've been in science ever since. But when I was 13 and had my bar mitzvah, which means you cash a whole bunch of checks, I had enough money to buy something new, a hi-fi record player. It wasn't yet stereo. It was single speakers for the woofer and the tweeter. And I started just listening to music obsessively. In other words, Rachmaninoff, Bartok, Beethoven, Stravinsky, Bach, the whole bunch of them. And that was my milieu. That was where I lived comfortably, in music, because popular music, which was the music of the kids who used to beat me up and humiliate me. So I wanted to have nothing to do with it. But eventually I found, and nobody thought I would be anything in music. I was thrown out of a trombone class. I wanted to be like J&K Winding with their trombone duo. And I was thrown out in the first 2 weeks of class. It was, my mother got me private lessons in the violin from the second violinist at Buffalo Philharmonic Orchestra. One day, as I was scratching away, trying to show him what I had learned in the past week, I saw this fist the size of a ham come across my windscreen, hit my violin, smash it all the way to the windows, to the curtains. The velvet curtains saved it, and it fell harmlessly on the velvet crumpled down below the window. And that was the end of my violin lessons. So I took piano lessons, and at the end of 2.5 months during the summer, the piano teacher said, "Look, I got a confession to make. When you walked into my studio, I knew you would never be able to play the piano. But I took you on because all my normal clients were away for the summer at summer camp, and I needed to pay my rent.
Wow.
But now I'm telling you that if you continue to work as hard as you have been working, you will be able to play the piano." And I was never able to find the time again to practice the piano because my parents made me promise that if they sent me to a wonderful private school where I had a chance of belonging, that I would work, that I would actually pay attention in class, which I had never done because I was reading 2 books a day under the desk. So, but nonetheless, the least likely person, my whole family is musical. I'm not in the standard sense. And yet I ended up founding the biggest PR firm in the music industry, applying the lessons of my science to PR in the music industry, pacing any of my rivals 2 or 3 to 1. In other words, my rivals were happy if they got you 6 stories a month. I was unhappy if we got you less than 60 stories a month. The average was 125 stories a month, and sometimes it went up to 750 a month. So I did a whole different kind of PR, and PR is a matter of making a name repeat itself so many times that eventually people come to recognize it, and other people start pinning their careers on it, saying, "Oh, did you know I worked for Prince?" And all of a sudden that elevates their career. And Prince was a total, look, I have this thing in my gut, and it goes off every 2 years or so. It only goes off when I see a person who has the potential to be a superstar. And it went off with an unknown when I was when I founded the East Coast Public and Artist Relations Department for ABC Records. It went off. We had a band at number 3 on the charts with a song called "Tell Me Something Good," and the band was named Rufus.
Rufus, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So I researched the band, and I went out in a limo one day to pick up the band's manager, who was Diana Ross's husband. And I knew that if I had him with me in the limousine on the way back to the city, he would be trapped. We would be trapped in traffic. I would have him as a captive audience. And I said, "Look, I know your band prides itself on your democracy. Everybody is equal to everybody else. But if you let me put all of the media attention on the lead singer, and you cover my ass with the band, I will give you a star." And the unknown singer, lost in the democracy of that band, was named Shaka Khan. So, in other words, the the star spotting system in my gut had gone off and said this could be a star, because I don't say that to people unless I know it. So another unknown was this kid from Minneapolis. I had been following his career because he was a total unknown, and yet he got an album on the R&B charts. And then that album went to platinum, and no one had ever heard of him. And in my good fortune, his manager called a few weeks later. His manager was Earth, Wind & Fire's manager, and I was handling Earth, Wind & Fire. And he said, I've got this new kid. Would you be willing to work with him? The new kid was the kid I'd been following on the charts. So, of course, my answer was yes. And the star thing in my gut had gone off again. And the biggest time it went off was in 2005, when I saw a person speaking at a space conference. And he said, when I got out of college, I asked myself the following question: what three things would do the most in my lifetime to change humanity? And his answers were the internet, alternative energy, and space. So he went into the internet business, and he helped build a business that he was able to sell and get roughly, what was it? It was roughly $1 billion out of it. And then he skipped over number 2, alternative energy, and he went directly to space. And he had not launched a single thing. He had not even put a firecracker in a tin can and lit it yet. And all of the major companies like Boeing were making fun of him. But this time, the star-making machine didn't just say, this is a star. I'd been hunting myth. And so I was hunting in dark underbelly where new myths and movements are made. That was what I was doing when I landed in the music industry. And all of a sudden, the star-making thing went off and said, this guy is not a star, he's a myth. And kids will be following his example 115 years from now. And that guy's name was Elon Musk.
Wow.
So we had 3 conversations based on that intuition. So the star-making machine in the gut can work very effectively.
Yeah, it seems like you have a keen eye. Question.
Yes.
2023, you decide to go into music. Initially, in your career of just multi-platforms, did you always want to do music? I know you said that you doubted it before with the house music. When you decided you were going to go into a set question, was it going to be house music or another genre?
Well, it was my least favorite. Singing was my thing to do.
Wow.
I learned to love it. It's treated me very well, and it's creative, and I enjoy doing it. At my age, I think it's pretty outstanding to do all these things that I do and get some awards for my songs. It's very good. That's for music, yes.
Wow. And Howard, you mentioned the it factor, the star factor that makes your gut go off. Are there any characteristics or any qualities that, like with a Prince or Billy Joel, that you see that gives you that spidey sense, if you will?
It's Markivus. It is entirely unpredictable. There are no criteria. It just goes off. And, look, when I had my 3 conversations with Elon Musk, I could not tell him why I was wasting his time, because it took 10 years for me to articulate, to put into words what my gut was telling me. And if it had been 10 years earlier during the phone conversations, I would have said, I'm calling you because you are a myth in the making, and perhaps I can help you become even more of a myth. But I couldn't say that because it took 10 years to articulate it. The thing in the gut is so wordless and so it's a body sensation. It's a muscular sensation. It doesn't talk to your mind except to say, this person is a star. So, there were a lot of people who were obviously stars. Michael Jackson was huge. He was the biggest phenomenon in the history of the music industry when I first started working with him. But he and I had a soul connection. Our souls were connected as if we were Siamese twins. It was absolutely astonishing. And one day I got a call. I was sitting in my office on 55th Street in Manhattan, and I kept a little red knapsack behind my desk with everything I would need in case I got an emergency call to go out on the road somewhere. And I got a call at 4:00 saying, Michael is canceling his tour. You're the only one he will listen to. You've got to be out here by 11 o'clock tonight, meaning out in Hollywood. And that was because Michael and I had this soul connection. Think of what it's like to be the only person in the world Michael Jackson, the biggest star in the history of the music industry, will listen to. That's astonishing. And I could tell you the stories of how I learned what I learned about Michael. And it wasn't from reading 1,000 clippings on him, which I had done. It was from standing next to him with his shoulder next to mine, his elbow next to mine, his left knee next to mine, and feeling his feelings. My first meeting with Michael, I'd been working with his brothers and I'd taken them on. I had refused to work with them for 4 months. And then they insisted on a meeting. And I've been told that if you want to be a real man, you say no. You have the courtesy of saying no to people's faces. And here the brothers were in town and they were asking for a meeting. So I went into the Helmsley Palace to be a man and do the decent, ethical thing and say no to their face. And they were on one of the top floors of the Helmsley Palace. I went down the hallway, knocked on the door opened just a bit, and that thing in the gut said, these guys are in trouble. These are 5 of the most moral, ethical, caring people you will ever meet in your life, and they are in trouble. Now, if you're in trouble and then you need me, because then I will fight on your behalf. And it took 3 months to articulate the problem. I mean, I could see that somebody was doing evil things to their publicity and giving them a bad name. And at first I pinpointed it to Don King. Now, Don King killed a man with his bare hands and his shoes, kicking the man to death. So you don't mess with Don King. I messed with Don King. And I got a gag order put on Don King because his involvement had poisoned the press against the Jacksons tour that year.
So this is the Victory Tour, I presume.
Victory Tour, yes, okay. Exactly. You're very, very well informed. So what I detected was that there was somebody behind the scenes, hidden. Don King was flamboyant. There was nothing hidden about Don King, but there was somebody else who was screwing around with this tour and doing destructive things. And it turned out to be somebody who was out there to take the power, the glory, and some of the money from what Michael Jackson had produced, but doing it at Michael Jackson and his brother's expense. And eventually, as I got closer and closer to figuring out who that person was, and that person knew it, he poisoned the well between me and Michael, and he got me kicked off the tour. We were still doing the publicity, but I wasn't out at every single show, every single night, briefing the press in the press room after the show was over, which is what I had been doing. And I was no longer there as a sole companion to Michael because the people, you remember a year after Michael's death, which hit me and a lot of people like a personal blow in the gut, there was a press conference and several people went on stage and said, look what we've done for Michael Jackson. Since his death, we've doubled the value of his estate. Now, how gross and vampirical can you get celebrating the fact that you are living off the proceeds of Michael Jackson's death? And those people helped bring about his death.
Wow, that is deep. I want to transition.
You have interesting stories, David.
In theoretical physics at the age of 10. By the time I was 12, my mother got me a meeting with the head of the graduate physics department at the University of Buffalo. The head of a graduate physics department is going to talk to a 12-year-old? You got to be kidding me. It's a waste of his time. So I went into his office. He probably anticipated 5 minutes. We were talking about the heaviest scientific topic of the time, steady state theory of the universe versus Big Bang theory of the universe. And it was the year when the proponent of steady state theory was sure he was going to destroy Big Bang theory and we would never hear about it again. Did that prediction come true? Not exactly. So we were discussing the interpretation of the Doppler shift. And he kept me in his office for an hour. And when we came out, he put his hand on my shoulder and said to my mom, you don't have to stay for grad school in theoretical physics for him. He'll get into any school he wants. So, and I built my first Boolean algebra machine that year, my first computer. I co-designed a computer that won some science fair awards. This is all while I was 12. And then at 16, I worked as a lab assistant in the world's largest cancer research facility, the Roswell Park Memorial Cancer Research Institute in Buffalo, New York, and came up with a theory of the beginning, middle, and end of the universe that predicted 38 years in advance dark energy, which no one is able to explain, but this theory explains it. So that's the background from which I came into the music industry. Plus, to me, science meant the aspiration to omniscience, the desire to know everything. And the pivot was that line about looking at things right under your nose as if you've never seen them before, and then proceed from there. And one of the things I could see right under my nose from the age of 12 was the difference between the kind of Lutheran-like religion my synagogue followed. You're all prisoners in pews, and to get to the center, you have to go over everybody's knees, and it's a gross discomfort for everyone. That religion of imprisonment was one form of religion. And then there was the black form of religion, which was in the United States Holy Roller religion. And it was totally different. It was about bringing God into the body of a human being. So that human being could be shouting for 3 hours and rolling around on the floor. That's why they called it the Holy Roller Church. And that's an ecstatic religion. That's the very opposite. So I was aware of these two different forms of human experience. And then at the age of 16, I was the head of something called the program committee in my high school. And the juniors came to me and said, "We're having a dance. Would you advertise it for us?" And that was my job. I was the MC of the school assemblies every single morning. And I programmed 2 of them a week. And so I had to do that for them, even though if there was a dance or party of any kind in Buffalo, New York, I was cordially invited to stay as far away as possible, preferably Cleveland or Albuquerque. So I got on stage. I put a piece of music on the turntable. I got on stage. I don't know how to dance. I cannot do the box step. I cannot do the foxtrot. I cannot do the waltz. And I danced. And as I was dancing, I saw jaws dropping. I saw pupils dilating, eyes opening wide. I saw faces melting. I saw that audience of 350 people who really didn't like me come together as one big amoebic blob and reach pipe out to me, a pseudopod. And I had an out-of-body experience. I was on the ceiling watching all of this happen, and I was danced by the force that came through my body up to my head somewhere, was utterly transmogrified, and flowed back down to the audience. And it was an astonishing experience. And when I finished, that audience did something they would never do again, and they had never done before in my experience at that high school. They surged to the foot of the stage. They picked me up off the proscenium. They put me on their shoulders. They carried me out of the auditorium, up the footpath to the building where we had our classes, and only then did they put me down. So one of my advantages in working with my artists in the music business is I had this ecstatic experience. I knew what they went through on stage. I empathed with them. All of them lived in my heart. Michael Jackson lives in my heart. Prince lives in my heart. Even though they're both dead, they were my babies. And so it was the ability to know what Michael Jackson or Prince went through in a performance experience that gave me that, plus my science, gave me a massive edge
for your
over
firm.
my
Irene, that is that the energy that you get when you perform your music? Because I know 2023 and your music has been award winning. Can you describe in everything that you do, like with each passion, what energy and how it uplifts you?
Well, every time I go on stage, I'm very excited and very nervous at the same time. I think every celebrity I have talked to or performer all feel the same way for about 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So, but it is that energy also, that fear, that little bit of fear that makes you go out there. So you're out there in front of all these people. Now, this is live concerts or what have you. It's not recording studios.
Yes.
So you feed off the audience. You see if they like you. They have to respond to you. And if their face is just no expression, I get worried. But I've never had that. I think just one time at the very, very beginning, I slipped up on a song and I said all the wrong words. But it still went. I didn't stop. Yeah, that's the difference between that and going into a recording studio. It's quite a big difference. I didn't think I'd like it at first because there was no audience, but I really did. I really did. I loved the experience to go into a studio in a small little box with a microphone and headphones and start creating with engineers that are musicians or digital engineers. So much fun. It still is. And I'm going to continue doing that. I like performing. I also like writing. And does that answer your question?
Your book, What inspired you to write the book, and what was the motivation
What's the
behind
title of the
Ion?
book?
Aha. Do you know the title of the book?
Is
Because
Ion Beauty, right?
Ion Beauty, living
Yes.
beautifully after 50.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, it's a book about beauty and all the beauty secrets. Being backstage quite a bit, I learned a lot of secrets from different celebrities, and I'll tell you a few of them. Catherine Zeta Jones, puts
Mhm.
coffee on her body, coffee grounds, to keep her skin smooth. It
Wow.
just takes all the dead cells off. That was the one thing she did. Another person, who I told them I would never say their name, put mayonnaise all over their hair at night.
Oh my
When
God.
they got up, yeah, they washed her hair, and it actually worked. The other thing was Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor used to put aloe vera. She used to sleep in aloe vera. Her
Wow.
bed, it was kind of like a tunnel a little bit, and
Mhm.
that's why her skin was so pure and white and beautiful. And she aged, even as when she passed away, she looked beautiful. And the rest of the secrets I can't tell.
Wow. That's
Mhm.
definitely insightful. And both of you have had a long and very awarding career. What do you think now about the new era, the digital era, the social media era? What are your thoughts on entertainment and then now with all these platforms?
Well, I think it's a blessing and a curse at the same time.
Mhm.
What I hate seeing about the internet and the cell phones is all the young children having their heads just down all the time. They don't
Yes.
socialize with their friends. At the dinner table, they don't talk to their parents. They're just very unsocial. And I think this could be dreadful when they get to be in the real world. I have no
Mhm.
idea what the real world is going to be like in 20 years. And for that matter, even 1 year. So
Yeah.
the internet has helped many artists, as it exposed many artists. It gave an artist a platform for their work. And so for that, of course, all the learning things that we do and have from the computers is brilliant. But then, like when I was at I think it was the Grammys last year, there was or maybe it wasn't the Grammys, but anyhow, there was a major event, and the song that won Song of the Year was electronic. Everybody, all the artists were very angry because they spend their, life writing, singing, practicing, and here is this person in one room just messing around with fr- some knobs. I don't mean to undermine it. So that's the bad part of it. And people, the things that they could do on the computer, like put the president's head on a pig or some silly stuff like that. Say things. I know when Dolly Parton, she
Yeah.
was ill for a little while, just recently, and there was a big rumor that she had passed away. I got so many calls from that because my husband kind of represents her, and it was crazy. It was all AI, and there was something else from AI that was really awful. When Connie Francis died, and that I think is pretty recent. And being a big star and icon for so many years, when she passed away and had enemies in the business, as we all do, the AI said all this craziness about people showing up at her coffin and saying horrible things and awful things on the internet. So that for that reason, I don't like it because you can do anything. You always can do anything. So,
Yeah.
but I like what I type.
And
Yeah.
yeah. And Howard, your take, I mean, coming from the entertainment and PR,
Well,
how do you feel about social
right.
media and technology now?
I it is such a gift that it defies belief. Back in the 90s or 1980s, when I first got my first laptop in 1983 when I was working with the Jacksons. It was a tiny little thing from
Mhm.
Radio Shack, and it held an entire 8K of memory. People don't even remember what a K is anymore because they're accustomed to megabytes and gigabytes and
Yeah.
terabytes. But all of a sudden, handwriting for me is painful. All of a sudden, I could type and make any correction I wanted and move blocks of copy around. It was absolutely liberating. Now I'm on my eighth book and I do intense research on every single sentence so that you can rely on the fact that I have given you a statement that is absolutely pinned down, that is definitive, that is authoritative, because kids grow up on my books. and I mean 16-year-olds read my books. And they send me emails about your book changed my life. I didn't think I had any purpose or meaning in life. Now I know I have a purpose and a meaning. I've got something like 300 pages of these letters from people who read the books. So I need to be an absolute authority. To do that in the old days, sometimes it could take me a week to fact check a sentence. Now it takes me 10 minutes, 20 minutes. I put my AIs to work, and then I compare their answers and I make them fact check each other, because there are a lot of hallucinations, a lot of phony things they will tell you. But what a blessing to get a week's worth of work done in 10 or 20 minutes. It's absolutely astonishing. And does it dehumanize the work? No, it rehumanizes the work, because I can do more of the work that I do and the AI can't do. And that is my, people call it mythopoetic combination of science, history, and this kind of knowledge of spiritual stuff, if we want to call it that came from my experience, first being on stage and then working with other artists, because they touch the boundaries of the ecstatic, of the transcendent. And that is something in science we have to be aware of as a reality, and we have to be able to explain it as a reality.
And what about the, I know there was an AI actress and then also with the AI artist. For example, Irene, with you, how do you feel about that? Like AI music, AI actresses and actors, do you feel like that would eliminate like a career for a normal person? Is it an enhancement? What is your take on that?
Well, I wish I had that answer. I have no idea. My hunch is, of course, some guy will take over people's position and are a performer on stage. I went to see a group they were all passed away. And what is it called that where they're really not there, but they make them look so lifelike?
The holograms?
Yes.
The holograms.
And there was a group on stage, and I went there with my husband. This was in London, and he didn't say much about it. And I didn't, I wasn't into music at that time when they were very popular. And I was watching them, and making my claims, hey, they're damn good, so forth. And so at the end, my husband said, they're not real. And I said, what do you mean they're not real? They are real. No, they're not real. I would not believe him. They were so perfect. And now, that's becoming a rage right now. So I really don't know what's going to happen. I mean, the internet in the world travels so fast, you really can't keep up with it. It's hard to learn everything. I never will. I don't think anyone will. Maybe that's the fun of exploring. AI, what I worry about with AI is people listen to the false things that it says. But it is a very good tool, especially for authors and people who just want to have their simple questions answered. Absolutely.
Well, another author asked me last week, who did your book cover for you? This is the case of the Sexual Cosmos cover, which is gorgeous. Let me see if I can show it to you.
Yeah.
It's over, where is it? It's over on top. Can you see it? It's on top of the air conditioner. So there we go. That's it. That's the case of the Sexual Cosmos. So he said, where did you get this gorgeous cover? Who made it for you?
Okay.
I made it with ChatGPT.
Wow.
Isn't that? My entry to popular culture was I had graduate fellowships at four universities in what is today called neuroscience. And I jumped ship for an opportunity to help found a commercial art studio, because that's closer to the land where the gods are. That's closer to the area of these transcendent experiences we're talking about. And that's how I got into popular culture. And I was going to tell you a story about that, but now I'm blanking on what the story was. At any rate, I was involved in art direction. I actually made it on the cover of Art Direction magazine. It used to take us days to do. I can do in half an hour these days with the AI tools, with the visualization tools. Aura is a well talked about application for creating visuals that I haven't yet tried. ChatGPT was doing just fine for me. And last week, or 2 weeks ago, I go on 525 radio stations every Wednesday night at 1:06 in the morning. And I get my assignment from my host, George Noory, The show is Coast to Coast AM, sometime in the afternoon. And then I have to become the world's leading expert on it by the time the show goes on at night. So the topic was a song that had just gone to #1 on one of Billboard's charts that was entirely done by AI. The vocals were done by AI, all the production, the instruments, everything was done by AI. And I listened and I thought, this is a very strong song. This is a very good song. And the people who were criticizing it said it lacked any human emotion. Are you kidding me? This machine knows how to imitate. And as a consequence, it was imitating some of the best singers in the business and combining them. And it was singing with emotion. Now, don't ask me how that happens, that a machine, I mean, it could give us a bunch of cues, emotional cues. And we humans are very good at responding. We respond almost automatically to certain emotional cues. Well, people like me in the sciences can't explain what those cues are. A producer will have his own story of what those cues are, but those cues just hit something automatic inside you. And the machine had gotten it licked. It knew how to sing with emotion. So what will happen? I will get upset if my AIs try to write my books for me and put them out under my name. That will be a bit disturbing because I still feel all of these things accelerate the human in us, giving us they give us roller skates. Now, how much faster can you go on roller skates than if you're just walking? And ultimately, you don't want the roller skates to take over the world. You want them to continue to serve us. But at every level where we do things with machines, that gives us the time to rise to a whole new level of what we as humans and only we humans can do.
Well, I want to go out and do a new song from chat. I'm going to write a song from chat and AI. Thank you.
And I want to say thank you so much for being on the show. And as always, it seems like time flies when you're with great minds. My last question to both of you, I'll start off with you, Irene. Where can people find you? And what does 2026 look like for you?
Well, they can certainly find me on the internet. So that's definitely one of the things that's good for us. They can find me on all the music platforms, Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple, so forth. And as far as 2026, I'm going to do much of the same thing. Keep writing, keep performing, and keep making dreams. Because I think a person without a dream is very dull. If you have nothing to work for, or you have nothing to achieve, it's not good. So that's 2026 for me.
And 2026 for me is all mapped out because I've got to write 10 books. I've got 2 more books in me, at least. And I'm 82 years old.
Wow.
And it takes me a minimum 5 years to write a book, although with AI, maybe it'll be down to 4.5. So those next 2 books have got to be written. They must be written. And there is an AI called the Bloombot, and it is a machine to be me when I die. But we're still training it, and it is very hard to train it because it's based on ChatGPT, and ChatGPT is based on giving you orthodoxies. And all of my thoughts are in the space in between the orthodoxies. So it's very hard for the computer to learn how to do that. But we're training it. It's 85% there. I will have sometime in 2020, we will go on stage, I and the Bloombot, and we will have a discussion in front of a live audience. And it'll be the first time that an author has ever gone on stage with his digital twin or whatever you want to call it, the Bloombot.
So you have to invite us, for sure.
Wow.
You have to invite us.
Yes.
I want to be audience.
My mind is blown right now. So ladies and gentlemen,
crazy.
We'll leave you with that, with the Bloombot. And it's myself, Howard Bloom, and Irene Michaels signing off on Deeper the Music. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you. Thank you.
And Irene,